Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. A big news day, and we're, of course, going to start in Jamaica, where extremely dangerous Hurricane Melissa is expected to make landfall within hours. The outer bands of this historic Category 5 storm are already starting to pummel the coast. Right now, it's packing maximum sustained winds of 175 miles per hour, according to the National Hurricane Center.
Hurricane Melissa is on track to be the most powerful storm to ever hit Jamaica. Forecasters estimate it could dump up to 40 inches of rain on some parts of the island. They are warning of potentially life-threatening flash flooding and storm surge. Jamaica's Minister of Health and Wellness says at least 3 people have been killed while preparing for this storm, and incidents involving trees that were being cleared away. At least a dozen others have been injured. We're going to bring you the latest forecast and check in with an American who is stuck in Jamaica. But let's start with our George Solis in Jamaica's capital city, Kingston.
Good morning. Conditions here in Kingston rapidly deteriorating overnight. The rain and the wind starting to pick up. You can actually hear it howl if you listen closely in some instances. And officials warn the worst is yet to come. Some streets here already starting to flood. Help is already on standby for what could be a potentially historic landfall here in just a matter of hours. Now, we have been talking to both residents, tourists here stuck on the island, many of them already in their safe space, hunkering down, ready to ride this storm out. Keep in mind, people did have the option to leave before the nation's airports shut down. That time has come and gone. It is time to hunker down and find your safe space. Now, here in Kingston, we are fortunately, at least for now, looking to get some of those tropical winds and tropical rains, not so much those really catastrophic winds closer to the eye of Melissa. But again, that could change as this storm gets closer and closer. We know just about every portion of this island is going to be impacted with that historic amount of rainfall, a lot of it in the double digits for so many places. And that is what officials have been most concerned about here over the last several days, because before Melissa's arrival, there was actually a lot of rain that hit the island beforehand. That is going to increase the likelihood of those catastrophic landslides and make terrain here really, really unstable in the days ahead. So moving supplies from one place to the other is going to present a real challenge. All of the emergency shelters on the island were open. At last check, officials were concerned that they were not more full. They are riding on the assumption that a lot of people just have everything that they need to hunker down and weather this storm. And again, just to look again, you can see some of the rain, some of the winds picking up. Not as severe as they could be yet, but we know, again, that the worst here is still ahead of us. Back to you.
All right, George, thank you.
We are joined now by Peter Kong, who's from Georgia. He's vacationing with his family in the town of Ocho Rios. That is on Jamaica's northern coast, and that is also where they are riding out the storm. Peter, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us, but we hope you're staying safe. How are you and your family doing this morning? What does it look like outside right now?
We're doing pretty good. The rain has been on for about 24 hours, and the wind has picked up drastically. But, we're hunkered down in our hotel room, and, we're hoping for the best.
Beyond hunkering down, what is it you did to prepare for this storm? Were you able to stock up on any food and supplies?
Yes, we went to the supermarket, a couple of days ago when we found out we couldn't get out. So we did get some supplies, water and some food, canned foods. And, we're just worried about the water and the wind. We'll survive with the food in Jamaica.
Peter, what did happen when you tried to leave the island before the storm? When was that, and what were you told?
So when it went from a tropical storm into, they were talking about Category 1, 2, we came in on Thursday, and we tried to get out Saturday and Sunday. Kingston was closed down Saturday, and then we tried to get flights out of Montego Bay, and there were just nothing. Everything was just booked out.
Wow.
Knowing you're stuck there now, how are you feeling? Are you anxious at all?
It's very nerve-wracking just waiting, something, catastrophic can happen, and just the calm before the storm, they call it. Like, it's been no wind, a little bit of rain, nothing happening, and then all of a sudden it just start picking up, on a dime.
Wow. Peter, what's happening at the hotel where you're sheltering? Like, what are you hearing from staff and employees or officials there?
So we have to say shout out to the staff at Rio. Last night about 11 o'clock, they did, when they realized the storm might be hitting at the time for like lunch, they did drop off food for my entire family up here for tomorrow, just to write it out, just in case if they can't open up anything for us.
Is the theory that you're going to stay in the room to ride it out? Do they have a place to put you? And have they given you sort of any guidance on once the storm is through, what you should be doing after that?
So they did put out an announcement in the lobby where everybody goes to eat, on what to do. So they're trying to keep us safe as much as they can.
Any word of needing to evacuate?
No word on evacuation yet.
All right, Peter Kong, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Please stay safe out there. We'd love to check in with you. We're thinking of you and your family.
Thank you. All
right, let's bring in meteorologist Angie Lassman for a look at Hurricane Melissa's latest movements.
Yeah, Angie, good morning. What can you tell us? What's the latest?
Hi, good morning, guys. I can tell you that this is now officially the 8th strongest hurricane on record. With that latest update at 5 a.m., we saw that the pressure is down to 901 millibars, so putting it past Katrina for strength-wise, and that is no surprise. When you really look at the structure of this system, you can see how cleared out the eye is. It is crystal clear. We got great video from the hurricane hunters yesterday. There is another hurricane hunter plane on the way there and going to make some passes through this system to get one kind of final last look at some of those details as this system makes landfall in Jamaica later today. We've got winds at 175 miles per hour. Could we potentially see a lower pressure or maybe a little stronger winds by the time we get that latest that newest update? Maybe. Either way, it's not going to change the scenario for what folks in Jamaica like Peter are going to be dealing with here for the extended period. We've got it moving northeast right now at 5 miles per hour. We did eventually see that northeasterly turn that we were expecting into the overnight hours, still crawling along at just 5 miles per hour, though, and of course going to make landfall as a Category 5, the strongest hurricane ever to make landfall in Jamaica on record. Here's the timeline. Looks like late morning, early afternoon, so daylight hours. Likely, you can see, of course, west of Kingston. Kingston no longer in that cone, but Montego Bay is in the cone. We'll probably see a landfall somewhere near Black River in Jamaica, and those hurricane force winds are going to extend well out from the center. So where you see this red shaded area, those are hurricane force winds. So we're expecting, of course, the strongest, the worst of those winds to be right in that confined center where the eye wall is, so Cat 5 plus. And then as you extend out, you'll notice those hurricane force winds, places like Montego Bay, as we get into the late morning and late and early afternoon hours. Now, this is going to speed across Jamaica. We'll see it kind of take aim at Cuba later today. It does interact with some of the topography of Jamaica. We've got mountains there, so that's not going to do a whole lot when it comes to weakening the system before it impacts Cuba later today. It'll still be a Category 4. Folks there are going to see the hurricane force winds, of course, and the extremely heavy rainfall as well. And then it'll kind of speed along across parts of the Bahamas, and then we'll watch for Bermuda to potentially have some impacts as we get into the later parts of our work week. But let's specifically talk about some of those winds, because we've already had really ample amounts of rain falling across this region. So the grounds are saturated. That means that not only are we going to see, guys, just a much easier time of things, of trees falling and stuff like that, but we're also going to see these destructive wind gusts over 100 miles per hour for multiple days at a time, or for multiple hours throughout the day today. And then on top of that, we've got additional rain. By the time we end up, seeing this system work across Jamaica, we could be talking about 30+ inches of rain across that region. The landslides, the mudslides, all going to be incredibly difficult. And we've got the storm surge that we're going to look at 9 to 13 feet. So a multitude of issues, likely isolated communities, power outages, and the works for multiple days probably.
And that's the big thing, is like the wind's obviously going to be a big part of the story. But once that storm goes through, the real danger is going to be all the rain, the flooding for perhaps days afterward that they'll be dealing with.
Exactly. And dealing with communication is going to be trouble. Obviously, the power outages, all of that is going to be, multiple days to come.
All right. We will be on this all morning. So, Angie, thank you very much. Well, the severe weather is not limited to the tropics. In Florida, a possible tornado ripped through parts of the Panhandle. Then thunderstorms brought flash flooding to other parts of the state. And dangerous conditions were felt all across the southeast. Here's NBC News correspondent Aaron Gilchrist with more.
Heavy rain and strong wind pummeling Florida's Panhandle. The powerful storm ripping parts of the roof off this hotel in Mexico Beach before dawn, sending it careening into a mobile home park across the street.
With the power lines down and RVs on their sides, it could have been an awful lot worse.
This couple from Athens, Georgia, tossed around inside their RV as it flipped. Rescuers had to rip out the windshield to save them.
I said, we're going over, and we just went. This is the first time I've ever been, like, flipped over and messed with like this. I can't even Mother Nature got mad at me for something.
Craig Wilbanks needed 4 stitches in his head. The possible tornado also sent 2 other people to the hospital. A cluster of thunderstorms dropping more than 14 inches of rain in some parts of Florida, a major road collapse in Mount Dora, and dangerous flash flooding in Titusville. Staff at the Space Coast Executive Jet Center forced to move this plane to higher ground. A van nearly colliding with this fire engine.
Wow, I've never seen one of these spots before.
Off Louisiana's coast, look at this funnel cloud and a second forming right beside it. In Mississippi, an EF1 tornado carving a path of destruction, sending debris flying near this restaurant. Back in Mexico Beach, Florida, drivers battling a deluge driven by ferocious wind, the remains of homes and debris strewn across streets.
I was very, very scared. I thought that this could be it.
Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Well, back in Washington, the government shutdown is entering day 28, and things remain at an impasse in the standoff between Senate Democrats and Republicans. This is even after the largest federal workers union called on Congress to end the shutdown now.
In a statement yesterday, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees said, quote, "Both political parties have made their point. It's time to pass a clean continuing resolution and end this shutdown." Today is the day that a majority of federal workers are set to miss their first full paycheck.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona joins us now with the latest. Mel, good morning. So there are some important meetings happening today. We've got Democrats holding an in-person caucus meeting, and then Vice President J.D. Vance plans to meet with Senate Republicans. So is the focus out of these meetings reopening the government, or right now are we sort of trying to do some of this stopgap stuff to try to get some relief to people who are feeling the consequences of this lapse in federal funding, get any of these workers paid?
Yeah, well, the stated purpose of the J.D. Vance meeting is actually about tariffs, because Democrats are trying to force a trio of votes this week on these bills that would essentially block some of Trump's tariffs. And Republicans have been increasingly uncomfortable with those tariffs. And so the White House really wants to make sure that Republicans stay in line on that issue. But of course, the shutdown is going to come up. That is heavy on everyone's mind. And J.D. Vance is expected to take a larger role in the shutdown talks, especially with Donald Trump overseas right now. And one thing that Republicans are debating is whether they should put these standalone bills on the floor this week that would provide some relief to some of these various pain points, whether that is funding SNAP, which is due to run out of money next week, or if it's paying these different groups of federal workers, paying the military. That is something they're debating internally, and so I'm sure they're going to try to take some guidance from the White House. Meanwhile, Democrats holding their own meeting, and as you mentioned, they're facing some pressure from some of their own allies, like the biggest union representing federal workers, that are now calling on them to cave. We'll see if that changes the calculus, but so far they are not moving off of their position.
Mel, whenever there's a major stalemate in the Senate, we hear rumblings about the so-called nuclear option that would end the filibuster, get rid of that 60-vote threshold. As we learn in our poli-sci classes, the filibuster gives the minority party the power to delay a bill, potentially sink it through endless hours of debate, unless you get those 60 votes to overcome it. Are Senate Republicans considering that at all right now?
Well, this has been something that has come up sporadically throughout the shutdown. Certainly, there's some on the far right who are pushing to nuke the filibuster, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But for the most part, Republicans are extremely resistant to this idea, especially the GOP leadership, because they're playing the long game. They know eventually Democrats are going to control the Senate at some point in the future. And that filibuster is one of the last guardrails protecting the institution and making the Senate really what the Senate is. And so at this time, there's not any serious consideration to this. Of course, if Trump gets involved and starts pushing Republicans, that could change things. Right now, though, that is not something that they're actually putting on the table.
Mel, tomorrow, 4 weeks into this government shutdown, that actually makes it the second longest in U.S. history. Also, hitting that mark means even more federal workers are going to miss a full paycheck. Who's going to be impacted next here?
Yeah, starting today, air traffic controllers are going to miss their first full paycheck. Some of them are already starting to call in sick. They're having to pick up second jobs in order to make ends meet. And so that is really fueling concern about increasing air travel delays. There's also a question about whether the military will get paid on Friday.
The Trump administration did move money around to ensure they did get a paycheck on October 15th. Their last paycheck, unclear whether the administration is going to be able to find the money to pay them on Friday. And meanwhile, as I mentioned, those SNAP benefits set to run out on November 1st, a critical food aid program. So this pain of the shutdown only continuing to grow, guys.
All right. Melanie Zanona, thank you very much.
President Trump is in Japan for the second leg of his three-country Asia tour. Earlier today, the president met with the country's recently elected and first female prime minister. He praised her leadership and said the U.S. and Japan are allies, quote, at the strongest level. The two leaders then signed the framework agreements on trade and critical minerals. They also met with U.S. troops at a naval base in central Japan.
This is all leading up to a highly anticipated meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea on Thursday. Now, China has a near monopoly on the globe's rare earth minerals, which they've weaponized in trade negotiations with the Trump administration. But both sides appear optimistic that they will reach a deal.
NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander is traveling with the president. He's in Tokyo with the latest. Peter, good morning. So we know trade's at the top of President Trump's policy agenda on this trip. Yeah. Catch us up on his time there so far and the agreement that he reached with Japan.
Joe and Savannah, good morning to both of you. The president's actually addressing business leaders even as we speak right now, wrapping up the second stop of his Asia tour, the first of his second time as president here. He started the trip in Malaysia, now in Japan, meeting with a lot of Asian allies, really as an effort to sort of counter the growing influence of China, not just in this region, but throughout the world. Specifically today, the president signing an agreement alongside the first female prime minister of Japan to help in terms of a cooperation deal as it relates to those rare earth minerals that are critical for the United States, for all countries, frankly, to be used as part of microchips and beyond. A lot of this coming in the wake of the COVID pandemic that demonstrated the need for the U.S. to have other channels beyond China to access that sort of a resource. But broadly speaking, the topic of trade is really, as you know, driving the conversation. It was interesting to watch Sunday Takaichi, again, the prime minister here, who was just got that post less than a week ago, took place last week, noting the way that other foreign leaders have been able to cozy up to President Trump, greeting him, saying that she would be buying a fleet of F-150s that Japan would be using, gifting him a golf bag as well. The president then showering her with praise, really an effort to try to warm up or maintain the warm relationship that exists between these two countries.
Peter, expectations for President Trump's upcoming meeting with China's President Xi Jinping on Thursday led to record highs on Wall Street yesterday. Both the U.S. and China have expressed optimism that we're going to have this framework agreement on trade between the two countries. What details do we have so far?
Yeah, you make a good point already. They have the framework agreement. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent telling us that now they're looking to formalize an agreement between the two. Not clear when it could be signed, but certainly could be finalized when President Trump meets with President Xi Jinping to take place in South Korea on Thursday. Significantly, the first time the two men will meet in person in 6 years. Certainly the first time the president's going to see him since returning to office here. The president and his allies have indicated that that threat of an additional 100% tariff they were warning they would slap on Chinese goods coming to the U.S., that's now off the table. So that's a big difference maker and certainly helped with what we've seen from the markets, that they feel bullish that this is going in the right direction. But critics also argue that this is the president, in effect, claiming victory, claiming he has solved a problem of his own making after threatening a lot of those big tariffs and slapping additional tariffs on China since coming to power again in January. So we'll watch the way it all plays out. There was obviously some discussion about fentanyl that we expect that they will focus on here, as well as the purchase of soybeans by China, which has been a real issue for many farmers throughout the plains of the United States, who are concerned that they aren't receiving access to those to the Chinese market that they really badly need.
Major issue here for farmers in the States. One more thing we want to ask about, Peter. Yesterday, the president said he would be willing to extend his trip to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Has North Korea even responded to this invitation? Is that a realistic possibility or just a little chatter?
Yeah, I think I would lean on the chatter in terms of that. We haven't heard from the North Koreans on it specifically, but we're hearing basically from, the parties, the White House and beyond, that this is not, there's no expectation there's going to be any meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un this week. frankly, the two haven't spoken or haven't had any means of conversation, the president indicated, in quite some while. It was a question posed by reporters, and per usual, the president said he'd be open to it. He'd be glad to stick around if Kim Jong-un were to show up. But again, I think you can put a wet cloth on that idea. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, certainly not on this Asia visit.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. A Minnesota man is accused of making a disturbing online threat targeting Attorney General Pam Bondi. Now he's facing a federal charge. The suspect allegedly posted a TikTok video offering $45,000 for her assassination. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has that story.
A disturbing new threat discovered by a scrolling TikTok user. A post that offered tens of thousands of dollars to kill Attorney General Pam Bondi. A 29-year-old Minnesota man, Tyler Maxon Avalos, now faces one federal charge for transmitting that threat that investigators tracked on social media. According to the FBI, a TikTok post linked to Avalos read in part, "Wanted Pam Bondi, preferably dead," and referred to a reward of $45,000. Court documents include an image, which we are not showing, with a photo of Bondi with a sniper scope red dot on Bondi's forehead. TikTok, Google, and Comcast, parent company of NBC, helped the FBI trace the suspect, according to the affidavit, which also states Avalos has a criminal history, convicted of stalking and domestic battery. Bondi declined comment, but has pledged the DOJ will root out threats in this heated environment.
We cannot allow this political violence to continue any longer.
This suspect was released with a requirement to wear a GPS tracker, and he has not yet entered a plea. We're also tracking another high-profile case, and the judge overseeing the trial in the political assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has granted the suspect's request that he can wear civilian clothes, not a jail uniform, for future court appearances.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.